Welcome back, divas, to Dressed Rehearsal, the podcast where Broadway and fashion take center stage, and we dive deep on the roles that shape us on stage and off. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jacob. Today's guest is Leana Rae Concepcion. Leana is currently starring as Marcy Park in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, now playing off-Broadway at New World Stages. Before stepping into the Bee, she was part of the celebrated revival of Sondheim's Merrily We Roll Along, led by Daniel Radcliffe, Jonathan Groff, and Lindsay Mendez. In this episode, Leana reflects on the leadership lessons she took away from that remarkable company, offers an honest look at the financial realities facing Broadway artists today, and shares how her portrayal of Marcy Park reimagines the beloved character. We explore how thoughtful costume design helps reveal new layers of Marcy, creating a version of the role that feels richer, more human, and deeply authentic. And if you're in New York, be sure to catch Leana in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. You won't want to miss it. And welcome Leana Rae Concepcion to the podcast. How are you, Leana?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. So we start out every episode with how did you get bit by the theater bug?
How did I get bit by the theater bug? I think, well, my first experience with theater is I went on one of those. So I grew up in California. So in eighth grade, you can go to like a Washington, D.C., New York trip. So I went on one of those and we saw Mary Poppins. It was my first musical I ever saw in New York and in general. And I do remember like bursting into tears when I saw Bert start tap dancing upside down because I was like, what is this madness? So that
That's
was my
that
first.
Bert was your way in, that you were like, oh, that diva.
Yeah. No, so that was pretty cool. And again, I had no idea what I was walking into, but I didn't get bit by the theater bug really until my junior year of high school because that's when I decided to pursue this as a career because I had no idea that it was like a viable option for me. So,
I mean, it is very wild to think that like in high school is when you decided because I feel like that is such a pivotal time in our lives. And I read that you actually met Lindsay Mendez, your future co-star, when you were in high school. So can you
yeah.
talk about like what that full circle moment meant to you?
Yeah, no, that was pretty wild. So basically what happened was a very short version of it is I was a part of like a military program in middle school and high school. So that's really what I thought I was going to do with my life. I thought I was going to go to West Point, graduate, probably work in intelligence, and that was going to be it for me. And then my sophomore year, I switched high schools for a semester because I was being bullied, and I like reconnected with a friend of mine who told me that there was this new like dance conservatory opening up in our town. And I was like, I'm going to do that because that's going to look so good on my resume to
Wild.
go to West Point. And then I did that for a year. So that was my sophomore year. Starting junior year, it was called Brockes Conservatory. We would commute to Palm Springs 3 times a week to take musical theater classes at this new program called Musical Theater University,
Okay.
um, by David Green. And then this is where it gets a little weird. So at Musical Theater University, we would put on like a fall musical and a spring musical, and then we would have like concerts to raise money like for the program. And the reason why this program was so amazing was because so we did Hairspray and a chorus line my junior year. What would happen is the students of Musical Theater University would play the kids, and David would fly out like Broadway professional talent to play the adults. So we would get the opportunity to work with all of these amazing people. I obviously was a huge fan of Lindsay Mendez because I watched Fly Girl, her Broadway.com vlogs, like my
Iconic.
life depended on it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yep.
And every like Kerrigan and Loudermilk song that she sings on the internet. And like I'm a really huge Lindsay Mendez fan. So she came out to do Lucky Stiff for us as a fundraising opportunity for the program. And that is where I met Lindsay for the first time. So yeah, I was a teenager and I was like, I can't believe I'm meeting Lindsay Mendez, who I've just watched every single YouTube video that's ever had her name in it. And then yeah, fast forward, what is that? Like almost 10 years later, I am making my like New York City professional debut alongside Lindsay. And I remember like first day of rehearsal, it's like you're still meeting everyone and like getting to know everyone. And we had like a nice little meet and greet where we all introduced ourselves. And I like when I was talking with her and introducing myself, I was like, I don't know if you're gonna remember this, but I like told her, I was like, you did this like concert of Lucky Stiff. And she goes, yeah, in Palm Springs. And I was like, yes. And I had remembered that I found the photo on my Facebook, downloaded it to my phone,
Obsessed.
favorited it, so that I didn't have to like do the whole like phone thing while I was, so I had it pulled up already in my favorites. And I was like, this is us 9 years ago. And it then became like a really big running joke with us for the next, 3 years. And I would always remind her that we met when I was a teenager. And she'd be like, that's awesome. I'm really happy about that. So, but yeah.
I mean, for someone who like decided they wanted to do theater in high school, to have a full circle moment like that as your debut must be so affirming of like, oh, like this was meant to happen. Like this was where I am supposed to be.
Yeah, it's definitely such an interesting thing that I've had a lot of triumph and I've had a lot of heartbreak. And when I first started school, I was terrified because, I was in this class of, 20 other people who what felt like they had been doing it since they were born,
Mhm.
right? They've had training all over the country. They went to those like summer camps and I didn't even know those existed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like these people knew what a golden age 32 bar cut was and what a contemporary musical theater cut was. Like I had to thank God for the internet because I would have never gotten to musical theater college without it because I didn't know anyone who had ever done this, and the arts isn't a huge thing where I come from. So I had to do it all myself. And I mean, I owe everything to my alma mater. I went to Pace. Those 4 years were the best money I have ever spent in my life because it gave me the tools to begin a career. And then obviously through all of the things that I've done and all the people I've met and all the people I've been able to work with, I've just been taking, 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 and taking as much as I could. So I love how I fell into this industry. But I think on a more important level, so I grew up in San Bernardino, which, for a very long time, San Bernardino, it probably still is. I haven't looked in a while, but it's one of the poorest cities in the US. And it's very much a place where, you kind of are born there, you live there, and you die there. Not a lot of people get the opportunity to get out. So I take what I do very seriously in hopes that, maybe a kid from San Bernardino, like, figures out that I went to San Antonio High School and where they graduated, and that they have the opportunity to be like, oh, look at like someone got out and was able to like do something with their life. So I do take it all very, very seriously. Maybe too seriously sometimes, but whatever. That's just me.
I think that's fair. And I will say Pace does have somewhat of a reputation of a lot of child actors will end up at Pace. So I feel like that also
Yeah.
probably is an added layer of like these people have either worked on Broadway or worked regionally. And so maybe they're starting with that mentality too. So I can assume that that would only exacerbate the feeling of just like maybe feeling a step behind, even if you weren't, you still got in and were supposed to be there, but that kind of maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Oh, for sure. I also I think about this a lot because, while you're in college, you keep up with everyone in your class from all over the
Mhm.
country. And then obviously you all graduate at the same time and then you're all peers and you're all entering the industry at the same time. And then, I made friends with a lot of the younger classes. So I also worked in the admissions department at Pace. So like
Oh,
I helped
interesting.
like all of the pre-screening and I helped to run all of the auditions, like in-person auditions. And I helped, figure out, not, I didn't, obviously I didn't choose the class, but I was in those rooms when they were putting the classes together. And so that was also a really great way for me to like connect with like the younger classes that were coming in while I was still in school. And something that always like caught my eye, especially like, on TikTok and on Reddit and like all of these things, a lot of people talk about that their experience in college is going to mirror what their professional life will look like. And I disagree with that so hardcore. I disagree with that because, like, I never played a lead in college. I was definitely a person that was, I guess, I would hate to say looked over because it sounds so negative, and that's just not what it was. But I wasn't like the golden child of my musical theater program, and I was definitely starting from the bottom. And there were times where that was really difficult, but that in no way has mirrored my career at all. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have those opportunities, quote unquote, in college, but that has not deterred me from like having opportunities in my actual professional life. So, yeah. So, if anyone's listening and you're feeling bad about not getting cast in college, like, honestly, that is good because that's just giving you a pinch of reality of what it is like to actually work in this industry of like you might be right for the role but you might not be the person they're looking for and that's okay.
Right.
So yeah.
And I think what you said about admissions is really interesting. We had Bethany Tessark from Death Becomes Her on the pod. She actually went to Phase Two.
Oh, yeah.
And she was saying that when she was an associate dance captain on Diana, that was the first time she was behind the table. And she was like, oh, I realize it has nothing to do with me. And that understanding for auditioning for you too, I'm sure later on was like, oh, it is so not personal.
It is not personal at all.
And you're not doing anything right or wrong. And so I'm sure then when you were going into professional auditions, you had that understanding, which gives you such an added layer of context that like no one else is coming into the business with.
Yeah, and I think there's like a part of it too. It's like there's so much in our industry that we literally cannot control, right? But there are things that we can control. Like that's always my thing with auditions. Because some auditions like are harder than others, the not getting it.
Mm,
Or some of them I'm like, that's totally fine. And some of them I'm like so heartbroken. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is it for me.
mhm.
But the thing that I try to hold on to when I'm walking into these rooms and sharing, what I'm doing with the team of people that are going to make the final decision is the things that I can control, like making sure that I'm off book for everything. Have I done my research about what I am going in for? Do I know the people behind the table? Have I made choices? Because it might not be the choice that they want me to make, but at the very least, I've made a choice and they can redirect me in the room. And I'm either going to do that redirection how they want it, or I'm not going to do the redirection how they want it. Right. So these are the things that you can actually control. Like, okay, am I dressed appropriately for the role that because while everyone says that people have imagination, people don't have imagination. Sometimes you have to show them. Like, do you know what I mean? So these are the things that I can control. If I have done all of the work that I need to do, then the decision that they're making has actually nothing to do with me. Because also at the end of the day, like it's a business. And especially I think the direction that our industry is currently in this like forecast of like it's a business. Broadway is down right now. Tickets are like so expensive that people can't afford it. What's going to put butts in seats? It's going to be people with name recognition. I do not have name recognition. And sometimes that's gonna not make me get a role, and that's okay. But hopefully there will be that opportunity that I will receive that'll then allow me to start building name recognition that then will open doors to be able to do the actual work that I want to do.
Mhm.
And that is just the reality of it. And it's like so hard sometimes to like talk about theater and Broadway and off-Broadway and all these things because it is what we all love so much. And oftentimes in those conversations, the hard truth is it is a business. It's $1 million business. I mean, there are millions of dollars on the line here. And it's like, of course it's painful, but it's just the reality of like where we are right now in the entertainment business. So that's what I try to hold on to when I'm walking into these rooms and I've, back to what you asked, like I've had the opportunity to like sit in some audition rooms and be a reader. And even that is fascinating because people always say like it's really obvious when the person who is going to get cast walks into the room. And I was always like, yeah, okay, sure. And then you like sit in the room and you're like, oh, wow, it is obvious. It is like sometimes it is so apparent. I'm like, oh, that's the person. And I like sneak a peek at the table and they're feeling the same thing that I felt. You know what I mean? So it's a really interesting thing.
And it makes you remember that they want to find the person. Like they're so eager to
Yes.
find the person, so they're rooting for you. And
Yes.
I think what you're saying about name recognition is really fascinating. I was listening to Michelle Obama's podcast, and she was interviewing Io Debris and Don Cheadle talking about proof. And she was saying, she was like, Michelle was like, as if I'm on a first name basis with Michelle Obama. Mrs. Obama was saying that I love theater. I will go see theater. It makes me happy. It sparks joy. It is community for me. Other people that have never been introduced to this medium are coming for the IOs, the Don Cheadles. And you know
Yeah.
what? That is a pendulum swing that we have right now. And if that's going to bring someone new to a theater and they're going to now go see two more shows after that, let the ripple effect happen because we can't control it right now. And so
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
frustrating
I so agree, but this is also then where my problem, like this is then what happened, in my opinion. That's
because
just
I
my
don't
opinion.
totally agree with what she's saying either. I think it's a
But
slippery slope.
like, here's the thing. Yes, get people in seats. Yes, introduce, like the amount of people that were introduced to Broadway when Megan Thee Stallion was in Moulin Rouge was
Sure.
remarkable. But here's the thing is if people are going to be spending upwards, a family of four is going to be spending up to $1,000 an evening or more to go see a show, we still need to give the audience an $1,000 performance and
Yep.
something to look at, right?
Yep.
And again, like it's hard for me to even speak on this because like I'm not a producer. I don't know the financials of all these shows. So, I'm kind of pulling stuff out of my butt right now. This is how I would feel if I was a first time, theater goer watching a person that I am a fan of on the stage. I still think though the quality of the production has to be there,
Yep.
right? So they still need to be giving performances that are worth the price tag. We still need to offer the audience something beautiful to look at, like, unless it makes sense for the production, but it doesn't always make sense to have a blank stage. And I get it. It's money, it's business. But if you want people to come back, it has to be a show that's going to wow them enough to want to come back and see another thing. So it's like, yes, like we can have our cake, but we're not always going to eat it
Hmm.
because you might be getting a person for this show, but what makes you think that they're going to go spend more money to go see X, Y, and Z show? And that's
Right.
just my opinion. And again, I'm saying this all with no understanding of the financials of Broadway. I've never worked behind the scenes in that way. I've never had to make those decisions,
Hmm.
but that's just at least that's my hope is that if we are going to have name recognition, that we are still putting on a show that's worth the money that people are spending to then want them to continue buying tickets
Hmm.
to the theater.
I think that's the perfect asterisk. I also want to go back a little to what you were saying about like making choices. I think that skill must have been so important now doing spelling bee, which can be completely different, like improving, all the things. And so I'm curious for you how you've kind of built that muscle of being okay with things not going as planned every day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it really does happen in our show because, I mean, it is a true ensemble piece, right? So, you know, I was just talking with Danny, our director, about this past week because he came to see our show to give us notes and stuff. And we were talking about, I was like, we spent hours. We spent hours in the rehearsal room after we had fully like blocked and learned the show on week one. We went back on top of week two and we started from the beginning and we spent hours mining so many different things, turning the knobs up on each of the characters, trusting him because he's actually seeing the whole picture and not just worrying about what's happening with Marcy. And it's so funny because it's so perfectly calibrated that, and the performance lives and breathes every single night, especially because one, it's a comedy. Two, we have amazing like swings and understudies that are constantly on stage. And then the last piece of the puzzle is the audience. In our show, I think really actually plays a huge difference. If you get a quieter audience, you as the actors feel like you want to push it, but then you lose the thing that we have rehearsed, the foundation of the show. And then we go in a completely different direction that is not right. And then sometimes you have an amazing audience and you also want to push it because you want to get more laughs, but then again, you're losing the essence of the show. So it's been such a weird and hard job to be able to just trust the show that we have rehearsed and have been doing for the last, 7 or 8 months now, that even if the audience is giving us nothing, or even if the audience is giving us a lot of things, that we have to stay like perfectly calibrated. So it is hard, but it is very fun. I mean, and also like Bill and Rachel gave us such a beautiful piece of theater that I mean, at least for me, like I'm continuing to like mine things and find things every single show. Like the last night, I feel like I had such an epiphany and I was like, but I've been doing this for 8 months. Like, do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's really amazing. And I think it's great too to have a company of people who are also like living and breathing in it every single day. Like no one is giving the exact same performance every night because we're all still mining things and listening to each other. And I think that's awesome to like be in a company where everyone is still striving for perfection, even though that's not a real or possible thing.
Totally. And I think a unique experience for you is the fact that you were one of, I think, three cast members that also did the Kennedy Center production. And
Yeah.
so what an exercise in trust that must have been to now have a whole new company off Broadway of people to play with where you're like, oh, I know this version of the show with these people, but like
Yeah.
let's rediscover with all these new people. And so I'm curious like what you feel like the new cast members brought to the show.
Well, it was actually great too because I have said this before, and Danny and I talked about it a lot when we first started rehearsals. I mean, I was brought on to the Kennedy Center the weekend before rehearsal started,
Wow.
and I didn't know the show at all. So I walked in being very confused about Marcy, and we only had like a week of rehearsals because that's how fast the Kennedy Center goes when you're doing the center stage productions. And I will say it with my full chest, I am not proud of the Marcy that I did in DC. Like, she was confused, she was lost. I didn't really understand her. We didn't really have enough time to like figure her out. So then I spent the whole year thinking about her, and it was great. It was very affirming because when we then had like one-on-ones with Danny when we on our first week of rehearsal, him and I both looked at each other and were like, man, we really messed that up in Kennedy Center, didn't we? And him and I just like chatted for like an hour, being like figuring her out. And so that was really exciting to feel as if we still had so much work to do while everyone else around me was also figuring out their versions of these characters. And I think the beauty of, this new company is actually having rehearsal time, right? Like it was a fantastic rehearsal process, and we were just able to play and give ideas, and with just like complete trust in Danny though, because he is a type of director that loves to allow their actors to play and to have offerings and all of these things. But when he knew he wanted something, he was so direct and he was so succinct, and it was great. And he was such a great anchor for all of us. And there was just like trust that was built from the beginning of like, if he says, don't do that, do this instead, or like, let's play with this idea, we knew that we could trust what he was asking of us because he was the one seeing the full picture.
hmm And I think your vulnerability about the Kennedy Center run is really special because I've heard Casey Levy talk about like the City Center run of Ragtime. It's also so fast. And she was saying like I didn't know who Mother was fully until we did it on Broadway and like fully
Yeah.
did the process. And she went on to win a Tony for it. And I think
Yeah.
knowing yourself and knowing that like there is always more to mine and part of your time with Marcy, I know, has been the first time you've played a role on stage that is true to your Asian heritage. And so I'm curious for you, like how that experience changed you as an artist or even just like deepened your understanding of her.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so I'm half Filipino,
Okay.
and thing that I'm like still trying to figure out, I think like I haven't gotten the opportunity to do any Asian work, which like kind of sucks. I guess what it is I've just never felt, and this is so, I'm not going to say this properly. So if you're listening, please know that my intentions are true. But I've just never really felt like, I guess, Asian enough because I am mixed. Like, there is something about how I look that to someone in the audience, like, it's not obvious sometimes that I am Asian, right? But I'm also not white passing. Like, I'm not a white woman. So, yeah, I've had like such a weird thing with wanting to do Asian work of that. I think that I've just never been the right look of what they have wanted. And it's also been weird, like, because I've like not really entered the like Asian community in the theater space. So I think with like all of those things, I had like a chip on my shoulder about doing Asian work and being like, I actually was like, I actually don't want to play Asian people. I want to be an Asian person that plays roles and represents in that way. And I think I had a chip on my shoulder for a really long time because I wanted to be a part of that community so badly and just never, given the opportunity to. And playing Marcy was at first was such an interesting thing because it felt like I had a responsibility. And I think that's why I take her so seriously because, and I've said this before, and I'll say with my whole chest, is I do believe that, 20 years ago, Marcy was written with a lot of just like stereotypes of 20 years ago. And So the thing that I take really seriously is just making sure that she is a fully formed person and not just a walking stereotype. And I do love her trajectory in the show, that the thing that makes her so wonderful is that she finally has the opportunity to make a choice for herself, which I feel like a lot of young people, not just Asian kids, oftentimes don't feel like they have that, where it's like, yeah, you might be good at X, Y, and Z, but like maybe you want to do A and like try that. And it's been amazing to be able to do that. And I think that's actually where I mirror Marcy a lot, is that thankfully, a lot of people ask this all the time, being a person who is Asian, of like, do your parent like are your parents supportive? I'm like, actually, yeah, they're incredibly supportive. And I always do like the asterisk of like, but if like my mom thought I was really bad, like there's no way that I would be
Mhm.
doing this. Like I probably would have gone to West Point. Do you know what I mean? So in that way, I really mirror Marcy in that I was able to make a choice and I had the support of my family. And that's like, so I take the Jesus scene going into the camouflage scene very seriously every night, because if even one kid in the audience can be like, oh, I have choices, that's cool. Or they can like ruminate on that, that's enough for me.
I think what you said about kind of having two identities is so interesting, and the feeling of picking up and putting down your identity depending on the space and like the thought of code switching. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And I think the way you explained it is so beautiful of like, you're still figuring it out and nobody has answers
Yeah.
to this. And like, it's a
Yeah.
work in
It's
progress.
yeah, it is such
And
a weird thing.
people like expect you to have an answer ready at the go of like, this is how I fit into a community. And like knowing that like you're still figuring it out. And like, that is being an artist. And that's what exploring characters are. And that's how it informs you as a human being too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird, especially like, because Marcy Park is technically Korean. So
Mm.
they're even like, because Park, the last name Park. So even sometimes like this was officially coming off Broadway and I knew like when the press announcement was gonna come out, like I actually got a little nervous for a second, but I was like, well, I really hope that like no one like comes for me.
Mm.
And here's the thing is like, don't get me wrong, I would absolutely love it. I would love, love, love if when we're writing characters of like very specific like heritage, that the people cast in those roles are of that heritage. I would freaking love that. But if that's the case, then I will never work, because there are no half I think there's one half Filipino character in this new musical that's being made right now.
Mhm.
Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like until there is a time where there actually is opportunity for everyone, and not just Asian people, I'm talking everyone, then we can't have that specificity yet, unless it's a choice that the production is making, like Here Lies Love on Broadway, where that entire company was of Filipino descent, which was amazing. And that was a choice, though, that the creatives and the producers made before bringing it to Broadway. And I think that is wonderful. In my opinion, it's not fair to put that same sort of idea onto every single project if that's not the intention of the project, because it's also an interesting conversation, because why does that always happen to people of color, right? Because like what about like the ferryman, like was every single person of Irish descent on that stage? I don't know, but it's just a question where it's like, okay, well, if it's so important for them to be Irish, then that means every single person, but because they're white it's okay.
Right. And
Do you
then
know what I
each
mean? Like,
community is expected to build their own canon to be able to put themselves into it. But if you don't have the funding or you don't have the infrastructure right now, how are you supposed to build your own canon? And so it's like a
exactly.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's just another way for people to like put people of color into boxes. It's just another excuse of like,
Mhm.
well, that person can't do it because they're not Korean. I'm like, okay, well then like I don't like okay, then can someone write me a Filipino character? Like, do you know what I mean? Because then
Yeah.
they're always like, well, you should write it yourself. I go, I don't write. I've tried. Girl, I can't. I'm not Lynn. You know what I mean?
I'm not
Oh,
Lynn.
I'm
Right.
not Lynn. No
Right.
one is. No one is. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So that's always my thing too. And they're like, you should just write it yourself. I go, okay, like, sure, sure. I
I
can't
mean,
write. I've tried.
right. And it's not your responsibility, is the
It's
point.
not responsibility.
Right.
Yeah. So
And
yeah, that is something. But thankfully that hasn't happened with playing Marcy. I just think people are happy to have Asian representation, which that is enough for me. But I
oh,
was a little nervous at first because I was like, oh, I really hope like no one's upset with me.
mm-hmm. And your Marcy, you mentioned her look, and the costume design is a different interpretation than the original production. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how you feel like that has informed your Marcy.
Wait, I love her so much. I know. I feel like that's our biggest people love to critique our costume design because it's not as whimsical as it was 20 years ago. But it's also like, I mean, again, I hate to make sweeping judgment or assumptions, but like kids aren't as whimsical as they were 20 years ago.
No, they're in Aritzia. They're all wearing the same thing.
Like you don't see kids wearing capes anymore. Like the other day, it was a breath of fresh air. We actually had this sweet, sweet young girl as our guest speller 23, and she was wearing a tutu, and I was like, oh, there's the whimsy. But it's like,
Obsessed.
but it was like a breath of fresh air. It's like I haven't seen that in so long. Like, do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, I actually think that the costume design makes a heck of a lot of sense for the production that we are doing because ours is really rooted in so much truth, and that is how we're finding the comedy. Like it's not a slapstick, right? We're not making fun of kids. We're not putting things on that may feel insensitive in 2026. I'm not saying that they were doing that. I'm just saying that that is how you can interpret spelling bee.
Hmm.
But with Marcy in particular, Tommy Kurtzman, who is our hair designer, who I also worked with at the Kennedy Center doing this, it was always supposed to be top buns and bangs. I didn't have bangs when we did at the Kennedy Center, so I just did like a slick back space buns.
Hmm.
So then we got here, same costume, same idea, but then we were trying to figure out like what else we could do with my hair. And Tommy literally was like, "Well, I have this green in his studio." And he was like, "And I wanted to use it." He was like, "Let's just try it." And immediately when, we put the bangs on with the green and the green highlights and they do my hair, I was like, "Oh my God, this is so Marcy." And it happens a lot. Like look at Alyssa Liu, figure skater,
Hmm.
kids who are, at least from my belief, kids who are highly motivated or high excelling, a lot of the times they use their outward appearance to actually show their colorful inner life. And that is exactly, in my opinion, what the green does is Marcy has all of this inside of her, but she's never been given opportunity to. So her way to showcase all of those things is through her funky fun hair and like her fun colored barrettes that she probably, has a bunch of different colors that she changes and puts in her hair every day. And like that is her way of like expressing herself because she doesn't have other ways to express herself in her day-to-day life. And I thought it was the most brilliant freaking choice. And I love it. I love the green. I think it helps the character so much because you kind of see her and you're like, I don't really get it. Wait, she's like she feels so like militant. She feels so unbothered, but then she has this like weird hair. Like, what is that about? And then you understand what that is after Jesus and after camouflage of like, oh, like this is just an outward telling of who she actually is.
Right. It gives
So,
so much depth. That little choice just tells you there's so much under the surface that you're not seeing.
and we see that all the time with kids. All
Totally.
the time with kids.
And one of my favorite parts of Spelling Bee is the fact that you have guest spellers. So I have a little rapid fire for you if you're game.
Uh-oh.
And
Yeah.
if you have a little story in between, that's fine too. This is not strict rapid fire. But first up, guest speller who made you break on stage.
Oh my gosh. We had this kid that kind of looked like Sid from Toy Story. Killed me. Philippe
Right.
was like, doesn't the kid that looks like Sid from Toy Story? Oh man.
You were like, I can't unsee it.
Yep. Cannot see it.
Favorite Spelling Bee alum that came to see your production.
Aw. Probably Jesse. Just Tyler Ferguson.
That feels right. I mean, iconic.
Icon.
Favorite friend who's come to be a guest speller.
Uh, Probably Dan.
That feels right. I mean, do you think that he would be good in Spelling Bee? Do you think, especially with those improv skills from Every Brilliant Thing, that he could really pull off
Wait,
that?
I want him to be in a show so bad. He would never come and do it, but I want him to do it so bad. Because I
I mean,
actually think his pants would be so funny, but then I'm also like, wait, but Leave. He could be Leave. He would be
Daniel
so good.
Radcliffe, if you're listening, Spelling Bee, we're
We
we're
need
dream
you.
casting.
We
We're
need to
dream
sell tickets. Come join us.
casting. Guest speller who you were the most starstruck by.
Wait, honestly, Jonathan, I could not do my job. He was sitting next to me, and I was just like, I feel nervous. I'm like, what if my friend doesn't think I'm good?
And
Like,
how many times have you done a show with Jonathan Groff in
no,
a
I know,
row?
but I got so nervous because I was like, oh my gosh. And he was like sitting there and he like kept looking at me. And I'm like, I can't even stay in character because like all I want to do is laugh. But I was like, it was hard to do my job that day. Because it was like, it was me, it was him, and it was Kevin. And the three of us were just like,
And that is how I imagine Kevin McHale felt when his partner came on stage.
oh my God, no, that was so funny.
That is such a good prank. Like epic
It
proportion.
was, it was great.
So good. I also loved your opening night look for Spelling Bee. So I'm curious like what your inspo was there because that silhouette is to die for.
Oh my God, thanks. No, I don't know. I just like wanted to feel pretty.
Don't we all?
And I just saw that dress and I was like, that's cute. I want to wear that. And I was like, it's off Broadway. So I was like, I don't really want to like wear a gown, but I still wanted it to be like fun. And I did want to take something from Marcy, so I got the red from her.
Pattern is so in like it's
Yeah,
so pretty.
I know, I do love it. At first I was trying to get something that was like, I don't even know what that's called. It's not tartan. Is it tartan? My skirt.
Mm.
I wanted to try and find something like that, but I was like, it feels a little too on the nose. So I just took the red from her for my little sweater vest that I wear. And then I saw the dress and I was like, that's so cute. I want to wear that. So there was no inspo there.
I mean, it came together beautifully. So it
Thank you.
worked. And you brought up your Merrily co-stars. I do want to go back into Merrily for a little bit. It was
Yeah.
your Broadway debut, and
Yeah.
you were an understudy for Beth, played by Katie Rose Clark. And so I'm curious, like, when you went on for the first time as a principal, kind of what that whole day looked like.
Oh man. It was so cool. It was so cool. I mean, yeah, so I understudied her off Broadway as well. So I knew the role very well. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier of like, you can only prepare the things that you know. So I knew that what was important to me was to remember the evening. So, and the way I did that was I knew all of my blocking. Obviously, I knew all of my words, I knew all of my melodies. I did not want to have to think about anything other than just listening and responding and feeling everything that I was feeling. I didn't want to have to be like, okay, where do I go now? Like, when do I enter? Like, none of that. So I could be completely present in the moment. And yeah, so that's what happened. And I had a lot of friends in the audience, which was really cool. I did know a couple days beforehand that I would be going on for that
So
Tuesday.
lucky.
So that was so great to be able to like get people tickets and like to get people in the audience to just celebrate that. But it was amazing and that whole company was amazing. And anytime someone made their debut, anytime someone went on, everyone was so supportive and so wonderful. And yeah, and it was just so cool to like finally do it and like to understudy like Katie. I mean, I'm obsessed with Katie Rose Clark and it was so great to like finally be able to work with her and to learn from her. And yeah, it was like one of the best days ever.
And that show marked so many bursts and milestones for you. You got to perform
Yeah.
on the Tony Awards. Like, what did it mean to you to like look out at that audience and just like take it all in?
It's an amazing thing, I think, because, Broadway is the goal for a lot of people. And, so to be able to make your Broadway debut in of itself is such a feat. And never in my wildest dreams would I have ever thought that. And the thing about Broadway is like it doesn't mean security, right? Plenty of Broadway shows close very quickly. And I think the thing that was amazing with Merrily is there was a sense of security. Like we knew that we were going to run until the producers decided to close us. And that's exactly what happened. So that in of itself is an amazing thing. And then to also have your debut check off so many things off of a bucket list is also like mind-boggling of like we got to do a cast recording. We got to perform in front of full sold out houses every single night, which is funny because that was my introduction to Broadway. I was like, "Oh, that's like the normal thing." It's not. Had no idea. I was like, wait, what? Which sounds so annoying, but it's like I didn't know any better. And then yeah, so cast recording, performing to sold out audiences, performing on the Tony Awards, which in of itself was such an amazing gift that the producers gave us because they did not have to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like it was supposed to be old friends, but Maria and Sonia, our director and producer respectively, were like, no, like they never made us feel as if this show was just for the trio. It was for all of us, and it was all of us that made the piece what it was. And that was an amazing thing too, to like be in the ensemble. The thing that's so beautiful about Merrily is like, with the exception of one song that was added in, like our vocals, we never once oohed and awed. We were always saying words. We were always helping to tell the story. And Maria always made us feel like that we were an integral part of telling this story. It's not just about the trio. It's not just about the principals. And they paid a heck of a lot of money and fought for us to be able to even do those 10, 15 seconds before, to do that transition before Old Friends. And like that costs a lot of money because you have to get all of us into a studio to put down the vocals. You have to pay for rehearsal. You have to pay for all of us to, go to the theater in the charter bus and then go back and hire all the people to redo our hair and makeup. Like, so it was an amazing thing. And then for the principals that were not included in that performance, they paid for seats for them to be able to attend the Tony Awards. We were all included, which is amazing because that does not happen. It just simply doesn't happen. And then we won a Tony Award. We won Best Revival. So and then we got to do a pro shot. Like
Hmm.
all of these things in one experience, like it's amazing. And I have no other words to express that. And I think like when I first got the audition for it, I was auditioning for Beth. And then they went obviously in a very different direction, age-wise. And then when the offer came through to be in the ensemble to understudy Beth, I remember I had just gotten back from doing an out-of-town tryout in Denver, and it had been a couple months since I worked and since I booked anything, and I was ready to throw in the towel, which is so silly because it was like my first year in the industry, and I was like, well, that's it for me. I'm like, okay, relax, Leanna. And I was serving at Westville in the East Village, and I had two other friends, very good friends, that were in final callbacks with me for that role. And I remember the first girl the day before said that it was not her. So it was between me and my best friend. And
Wild.
then my best friend earlier that day, so the next day or before my shift, texted me and said that she also didn't get it. And I wasn't going to jump to assumptions because who knows, right? I remember I took a nap. I got up, went to start my shift. We literally had just started dinner service, and I got a text from my team. And they're like, hey, we just have a couple of questions for you. Like, are you available? And I responded, I was like, is it about Merrily? And they're like, no, not about Merrily at all. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I had some other things that were going on. So I got on the phone with them and I was like, hey, like, what's up? They're like, okay, yeah, so we just have to like know about this and this. And I was like, okay, this, and those are my out of town days, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, okay, cool. And also we just like wanted to let you know that you booked Merrily. And I was like, what?
Come on.
They're like, were you surprised? And I was like, yeah, like, because they were doing that on purpose because I love them so much. We have this weird thing. And again, this is gonna sound so annoying. So if you're listening to this, please don't judge me. These are their words, not mine. But I'm very like hard on myself with auditions. Like I'm very like, nope, that's not mine. No, I could have done this better. I could have done that, right? And I always call them after any audition or callback I go into. And I remember Merrily, and this has happened previously before, and it would happen again after Merrily, where I would call them and be like, you guys, I like that was the best audition I've ever gave. Like I think this one's mine. And they tell me that I am their only client that when I actually say those words, that is when I actually book the show. And I do remember saying that to them primarily. So I fell to the street. I was serving these tables. I had found out that I was going to do this, but from that moment, I had no idea that, because, even our Broadway transfer wasn't guaranteed. So if you would have told me that all of these things would have happened when I got that call serving tables at Westville, no way.
It always comes back to Westville. Let me tell you,
It does.
that pesto mashed potato calls my name. It is so good.
It's so good. I literally have it right now.
As you should. I hope they give you a discount.
Yeah, sometimes when I eat in person. I get a nice little discount.
That's all you need. I think that the way you express such gratitude, though, about the Merrily experience is really special. And that cast seemed to be led with that similar gratitude. And so I'm curious, like, what you learned from the Broadway vets in that company that you brought with you to Spelling Bee.
Man, I learned so much from them. I think the biggest thing that I learned, and again, it's like a concept that you all like that you like learn about. And I think until you see it happening in real time, and then if you ever get the opportunity to lead like they did, that I will do what they did in that. None of them, that trio never made anyone feel less than. Do you know what I mean? And like, I feel like I'm always talking about Dan when I do these podcast interviews when they talk about Merrily, but I mean, not just him, but the trio. I mean, Dan is Dan, Lindsay is Broadway royalty, and Jonathan's Jonathan and
A unicorn.
a unicorn. And to work with these A-list actors, they were never standoffish. They were always the coolest freaking people. And I take that with me with every single job that I do, that if the three of those people can be as nice as they are and as welcoming, and then no one else has an excuse to act any other way.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like no one. No one does. They're all theater people, so it's like obviously they have such respect for the work that we were doing and to honor Sondheim. And I think I also take that really seriously of like Dan never called out of the show. Even, and there were days where he probably should have because he just was sick and he had like a baby. So it's like, but no, he was like, no, it's important for me to be here. And I want to tell the story. And the same with Jonathan and the same with Lindsay. Like, and they showed me that you go to work. You go to work. And when you are at work, you do the work, even when you're feeling tired, even when you have 17 other things going on. Like to be here and to be doing the show is such a blessing. And yeah, and that really instilled like an old Broadway mentality in me. And yeah, and I think just if you have the opportunity to try and make the theater feel like a home and to feel like a safe place and to like have a good freaking time with the people that you are basically spending all day with, every day with, then we should do that.
And I think how perfect it was for this to be your debut and just to start your professional career on Broadway in that way and knowing those things, because now you'll have it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I cannot thank you enough. This has been so special. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And go see Spelling Bee off Broadway at New
Yes,
World
please
Stage Ed.
do.
You'll have a
Yay!
blast. Guaranteed.
And that's our show. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to Dressed Rehearsal. If you love theater and fashion as much as we do, invite another diva to join the community. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, all the places. See you next time.